ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 9, Bhisma is passing away, text number 21. Saha Deva Devaha Bhagavan Pratikshatam Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavat idam hinomi aham kalevaram yavat idam hinomi aham prasanna hasa arunalochana ullasat prasanna hasa arunalochana ullasan Mukhambujaha Dhyanapataha Chaturbhujaha Mukhambujo Dhyanapathas Chaturbhujaha Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavad idam hinomi aham Prasanna hasaruna lochanollasan Mukhambujo Dhyanapatas Chaturbhujaha Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavadidam hinomi aham Prasanna hasaruna lochanollasan Mukhambujo Dhyanapatas Chaturbhujaha Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavad idam hinomi aham Prasanna hasaruna lochanallasan Mukhambujo Dhyanapatas Chaturbhujaha Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavatidam hinomiham Prasannaha sarunalochanullasan Mukhambujo Dhyanapatha Chaturbhujaha Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavadidam hinomi aham Prasannaha sarunalochanollasan Mukhambujo Dhyanapatas Chaturbhujaha Sadeva Devo pratikshataam Sadevaram yavadidam inomiham Prasannaha sarunalochanullasan Mukham bhujo dhyanapataschaturpujaha Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshataam Kalevaram Yavadidam Anumiyaham Prasannaha Sarunalochanullasan Mukham bhujo dhyanapataschaturpujaha Saha He Deva Devaha the Supreme Lord of the Lords Bhagavan the Personality of Godhead Pratikshatam may kindly wait Kalevaram body Yavat as long as Idam this material body Hinomi may quit Aham I Prasanna cheerful Hasa smiling Aruna Lochana eyes red like the morning sun Ullasat beautifully decorated Mukhambujaha the lotus flower of his face Dhyanapataha in the path of my meditation Chaturbhujaha the 400 form of Narayana the worshipful deity of Bhisma Deva. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face with eyes as red as the rising sun is smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. Translation with repetition. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face with eyes as red as the rising sun is smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Bhishma Deva knew well that Lord Krishna is the original Narayana. His worshipable deity was 400 Narayana. But he knew that 400 Narayana is a plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. Indirectly he desired Lord Krishna to manifest himself in his 400 feature of Narayana. A Vaishnava is always humble in his behavior. Although it was 100% certain that Bhishma Deva was approaching Vaikuntha Dhama just after leaving his material body, still as a humble Vaishnava, he desired to see the beautiful face of the Lord. For after quitting the present body, he might not be in a position to see the Lord anymore. A Vaishnava is not puffed up, although the Lord guarantees his pure devotee entrance into his abode. Here Bhishma Deva says, as long as I do not quit this body. This means that the great general would quit the body by his own will. He was not being forced by the laws of nature. He was so powerful that he could stay in his body as long as he desired. He got this benediction from his father. He desired that the Lord stay before him in his 400 Narayana feature so that he might concentrate upon him and thus be entranced in that meditation. Then his mind might be sanctified with thinking of the Lord. Thus he did not mind wherever he might go. A pure devotee is never anxious to go back to the kingdom of God. He entirely depends on the goodwill of the Lord. He is equally satisfied even if the Lord desires him to go to hell. The only desire that a pure devotee entertains is that he may always be in the rapt attention with thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord regardless. Bhishma Deva wanted this much only, that his mind be absorbed in thinking of the Lord and that he may pass away thus. That is the highest ambition of a pure devotee. Thus ends the Transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in this chapter we are seeing, this chapter is titled as Bhishma Deva's passing away. So it's very important for us to note that this title for this chapter, Bhishma Deva's passing away, is signifying something very important. So every day millions of people might be dying, but hardly will hear or try to hear the passing away of some person. Maybe some near and dear ones, we may want to know a little more about how did they pass away, but in general, no one is really interested to know how someone passes away. But here, this entire chapter is being titled as Bhishma Deva's passing away because there is something very significant about how Bhishma Deva is leaving his body. And we must note the circumstances in which he is leaving. So the battle, he is in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and Maharaj Yudhishthira, along with his brothers and Lord Krishna, they all have come here to see Bhishma Deva's passing away. And Lord Krishna also wanted Maharaj Yudhishthira to learn from Bhishma Deva. So we'll see, starting next verse, one verse after this, Bhishma Deva will start instructing Yudhishthira Maharaj. But before that, as he was lying on a bed of arrows, so Bhishma Deva's condition was quite precarious. He is in so much of pain. He is lying on the bed of arrows, and all the great sages from all the different planetary systems, they came to see this auspicious event where Bhishma Deva is going to leave his body. And while this is happening, he saw and he welcomed all the members, the great sages, the Pandavas, headed by Maharaj Yudhishthira. So he welcomed them with due respect, and then he also welcomed Lord Krishna accordingly by offering him great prayers and great respect. And in this regard, he is offering various prayers, he is glorifying Lord. And in the last many verses we saw how he has been glorifying the Lord. And in this verse also, he is emphasizing the glories of the Lord, and he is requesting a Lord for a certain benediction or certain mercy from the Lord. And what is he saying here? So he is asking that pratikshatam. So he is asking the Lord to may kindly wait. So Lord is present there, but he is asking Lord to kindly wait. And how is he referring the Lord? He is referring the Lord as Deva Devaha, Bhagavan. So he is Deva Devaha. So just like Ishvaraha means controller, and Parama Ishvara means the supreme controller. So just to emphasize that Lord Krishna is not just another God, but is the Supreme Lord of the Lords, he is using the word Deva Devaha. And furthermore, he is saying Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is emphasizing again and again to inform the position of the Lord. So this is one of the characteristics of pure devotees, or for one who wants to become pure devotee, is to understand the position of the Lord. The position of the Lord is completely different from that of any other living entity. The Supreme Lord is the source of everything, is the source of this creation, and from him everything emanates, both spiritual and material. And therefore his position is completely different from any of our position. And Bhisma Deva, being one of the 12 Mahajanas, is completely aware of the position of the Supreme Lord. And therefore he is addressing the Lord accordingly. Sa Deva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam. May my Lord kindly wait. So, at what time he is asking to wait? Until what time? Kalevaram yavad idam hinomiham. So, please wait till I quit this material body. So, it is a very rare opportunity for someone to actually have Lord in front of them before they actually pass away. In fact, Srila Prabhupada also emphasizes in various places the importance of practicing spiritual life, and in especially the chapter 8 of Bhagavad Gita, Attaining the Supreme, where there is extensive discussion about how one can attain the Supreme and the importance of the last moments of death. So how it is so important? So in fact, Arjuna, in the very second verse of chapter 8, he is actually asking various questions, starting verse 1 and verse 2. And in the end, he asks, so in the second verse he says, Adiyagna katham ko atra dehasmin madhusudana prayana kale cha katham gneyosi niyatatma bhihi. So he is saying, how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So the test of all spiritual practice, Srila Prabhupada says, is at the time of death, can we remember the Lord? This is also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, where it is said, Etavan yoga sankhyabhyam swadharma parnishtaya Janma labha parapumsam ante narayana smritihi. So ante narayana smritihi. So can one remember the Lord at the end of death? Either you practice yoga, either you practice Sankhya philosophy, or either you do your occupational duties to the best of your abilities. But the paralabha, the highest gain at the time, the highest gain that one can obtain at in one's life is tested whether one remembers the Lord at the end of life. And Prabhupada also says, he quotes a Bengali verse which he says that you may do a lot of bhajan and sadhan, but at the time of death it will be tested whether have you done your bhajan and sadhan properly. Because one can, for namesake, do some bhajan, for namesake, do some sadhana, but it will be tested. And Prabhupada gives the example of a parrot. Parrot can also chant Hare Krishna, Prabhupada says. But as soon as another animal comes to kill parrot, it will not anymore say Hare Krishna, but it will say kyaun, 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 kyaun. Because it is not saying with understanding, it is not saying with appreciating the presence of the Lord, the glories of the Lord, but it is just repeating like a parrot-like. So Prabhupada says, even if we also repeat like parrot-like, even if we also for namesake do some things like sadhana and bhajana, at the point of death, we will not be able to remember the Lord. And therefore, it is important that we are not doing sadhana, we are not doing any of the spiritual program because some other people are watching us, because we want to just put another tick in the service. But it is actually to prepare ourselves at the point of death. Because at the point of death, we cannot remember the Lord unless we are not trained, unless we are not practiced in remembering the Lord. So this is the whole process, is how do we practice. And Prabhupada emphasizes in this verse the word prayanakale. So prayanakale is a very significant word where Prabhupada says that because whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. Arjuna fears that at the time of death, those who are in Krishna consciousness will forget the Supreme Lord, because at such a time, body functions are disrupted and the mind may be in a panic-stricken state. So actually, as we can see, as soon as we see some kind of a calamity, as soon as we see some emergency, our state of consciousness changes very drastically. We become quite tense. We become agitated. We become fearful. We get engrossed in that situation that we forget everything else. So similarly, it is being said at the point of death, all the bodily functions are disrupted and the mind is panic-stricken. So immediately the thought of spiritual life, the thought of the Lord, thought of chanting may not come, because it is very interesting state of life. The point of death is the most important point of time in one's life. At the same time, it is the most painful situation also. So the most painful situation to remember the Lord, and it is also the most important, it is very difficult. Because in our daily life we forget the Lord, then what about the painful condition? It becomes even more difficult. And therefore Prabhupada quotes this wonderful prayer by Kulashekar Alvar, who says, Krishna tvadiya pada pankaja panjarantam advaiva me vishatu manasa rajahamsa prayana prana prayana samaye kapha vata pittai. So here Kulashekar Alvar is offering this prayer, and Prabhupada often quoted this prayer, and he also used to sing this. Prabhupada's disciples used to recollect that even otherwise, when Prabhupada is sometimes walking or sitting, he would just chant this prayer of Kulashekar Alvar. And Prabhupada also composed a song on this verse. He sang like a song. And that was one of the first recordings that Srila Prabhupada actually made. And so, what is so special that Prabhupada often recited this verse? So, and also in this purport of second verse of 8th chapter, Prabhupada is quoting this verse, and he's saying what Kulashekar Maharaj is praying. He's praying that, my dear Lord, may I die immediately now that I am healthy, so that the swan of my mind may enter into the stem of thy lotus feet. So he's saying Kulashekar Alvar is healthy, his mind is sound, he's good, but he's saying, may I die immediately. Now that I am healthy, so that the swan of my mind may enter into the stem of thy lotus feet. So Prabhupada explains that this metaphor is used because swan, which like to be in pure water, they like to sport by getting into the stem or the lotus flower. They want to play and enter into the lotus flower. So similarly, Maharaj Kulashekara is saying, let my mind be absorbed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Because now I am healthy, my mind is good, may I do it now, and let that come now. So Maharaj Kulashekar fears that at the time of death, his throat will be so choked up that he will not be able to chant the holy names. So it is better to die immediately. So this is very important. See, these are great advanced devotees who are absorbed in the meditation of the Lord, yet they are saying, I may not be able to remember. And therefore, they want to die now, to remember the Lord now. So this is very important, that none of us should be so confident that, oh, we are practicing some spiritual life and therefore I have attained perfection of life. No. Perfection of life, the perfection of spiritual life, or the test of spiritual life will be tested in difficult times. When everything is fine, we may practice a certain kind of spiritual life. But in terms of reverses, how do we practice? That nishtha, that steadiness, even in times of crisis, in terms of calamities, is not very easy. And therefore, we must develop a lot more strength in the daily practices that we do. We must become conscious, we must recognize its importance, and we must try to do in the association of devotees so that we may grow and progress. Otherwise, it may not be strong as what it should be. Tivrena bhakti yogena, the intensity of bhakti yoga may not be there. Just like parrot, we may also be chanting, we may not know how we are chanting. So therefore, we have to be very, very alert as how are we doing. So, this point of death is so crucial, and as it is also said in the other verses in this chapter, where it is said, Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samad bhavam yati nasti atra samshayaha. So, Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram. Whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So Lord Krishna is very clearly explaining that at the point of death, if one remembers me only, not anyone else, me only then he will attain his nature. Of this there is no doubt. So Prabhupada emphasizes that in this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. So anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is immediately transferred to the transcendental abode of the Lord. So the whole practice is driven towards this. And Prabhupada says, remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. So it is not for an impure soul, for a soul who is not purified, it is not possible to remember Krishna at the point of death, especially at the time of death. And Prabhupada is recommending the practical way. How do we understand, how do we develop this practice to remember the Lord? What is the way? Because our mind is driven by so many different things. So Prabhupada is giving a solution of how can we remember, how can we become purified and remember the Lord. Prabhupada says, to remember Krishna, one should chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, incessantly following the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, being more tolerant than the tree, humbler than the grass, and offering all respect to others without requiring respect in return. In such a way, one will be able to depart from the body successfully, remembering Krishna, and so attain the supreme goal. So Prabhupada is emphasizing on the process, that is the chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So in Kali Yuga, to remember Krishna is very difficult because the minds and the body are so disturbed because of our past conditioning. It is very difficult to remember the Lord. But by chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, our heart and mind gets purified. The soul gets purified. So when purified, but how is that possible? So Prabhupada is saying not simply chanting, but Prabhupada is saying by chanting incessantly, continuously chanting. And Prabhupada is talking about following the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu incessantly chanted. But how can one chant continuously? It is so difficult for us to chant a certain number of rounds. How is that it is possible to chant incessantly? And Prabhupada is again quoting Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikshastakam, where the formula of how to chant incessantly is given. So there it is said, to become humble than the blade of a grass. So when one becomes humble than the blade of grass, so blade of a grass, if one steps on it, it does not protest. It does not think I am so important that you stepped on me. It doesn't think like that. It just quietly comes back to its original position. But if someone steps on us, we become very angry. Even if unknowingly someone steps, we become extremely angry. we become like a snake, ready to bite again. If you just touch the snake's tail or something, it becomes immediately very angry. Similarly, we think, oh, how do we take revenge? No humility. We want to think ourselves to be so important, so prominent. So as soon as we think ourselves to be too important, too prominent, too much driven by self-centric ego, then the humility will not exist. The humility to serve, the humility to depend on the mercy of the Lord will not exist. Then tolerant than a tree. The tree, sometimes in India, especially mango trees, people would throw a stone to pluck a mango. So the tree may be hit with stones, but it does not reject anyone from getting the fruit. It may be in dry weather, it may be in scorching heat, but it does not prevent anyone to take shelter of it and find some coolness. So it may be undergoing a lot of difficulties, that tree, but it does not try to, it tolerates, and it does not stop anyone from giving what it is supposed to give. So tolerating is a very important principle. Especially in devotional community, tolerating is very, very important. Just like we have anarthas, other devotees also have anarthas. So it is a symptom of a mature devotee that there is tolerance. And Prabhupada says that one who can remain steady even in times of provocation is said to be dhira. So sometimes tolerating is not just because situations are uncomfortable, but there may be sometimes provocation. Someone provokes you to become something. So in that state, we may think you're not only doing, it's not a natural circumstance which is leading to intolerance, but there's a certain kind of wish, a certain kind of provocation, intentional provocation. And then we think, okay, I have a right to protest, I have a right to fight, I have a right not to tolerate. Because there is a provocation, so naturally I should be also inimical. And therefore I will push back. I will criticize. But if we have these tendencies in our heart, our soul is yet not purified. We are not yet ready to chant always. And then the offering all respect to others without requiring respect in return. This is another important principle, to offer respect to others. We usually choose to respect others based on our interests. If we think someone is valuable for us, we respect them. If we think someone will give us some benefit, we respect them. As soon as we find another devotee who may not be aligning with what we think, the way we think, then immediately we start disrespecting. So disrespecting can be physical, can be within the mind. Sometimes we may think that, oh, I'm not disrespecting physically, but mentally I may be. I may be not caring, oh, maybe this devotee is not so important, or maybe this devotee is not, the way he does things is not what I like, so I disrespect the devotee. So, knowingly, unknowingly, all these qualities of being intolerant, of being not humble, of being disrespectful, these qualities will not help one to chant incessantly. And as long as these qualities exist, then our remembrance of the Lord also does not become solidified. Trinadapi sunichana taroriva saishuna amani na manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Kirtaniya sadahari is not possible. So these principles have to be, as it is said, that one should put these things on the neck and always remember these principles to become humble, tolerant and respectful. So the practical devotional service is meant to help us to develop these qualities and not to increase our pride. And here in this verse we can see the example of Bhisma Deva himself. And Prabhupada is explaining here that Bhisma Deva is asking the Lord to be present before him in his 400 form, so that his mind may be absorbed in remembering the Lord. Now, as it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, as soon as one remembers the Lord at the time of death, he will be immediately transferred to the transcendental abode. As soon as one is transferred to the transcendental abode, he is going to be with the Lord always in the spiritual abode. So why should Bhisma Deva ask the Lord as if he is not going to see the Lord again? Just like if you know that you are going to meet the next person just immediately after 5 minutes, you will not say, can you just be here for 5 more minutes? You ask someone to stay for 5 more minutes because you may think, oh, maybe I may not see you again, and therefore I may ask, can you please wait for a few more minutes? So Bhishma Deva is also asking as if he's not going to see the Lord again. And Prabhupada is explaining, although it was 100% certain that Bhishma Deva was approaching Vaikuntha Dhamma just after leaving his material body, still as a humble Vaishnava, he desired to see the beautiful face of the Lord, for after quitting the present body, he might not be in a position to see the Lord anymore. So this is a Vaishnava is never proud. So it's not easy to become a Vaishnava. It's not easy to become a devotee. To acquire the qualities of a devotee are not easy. By mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we are engaged in the service to become purified. But to actually become a devotee is not simple. Because how is a devotee known? What are the characteristics? These are the characteristics. To be very, very humble. And Prabhupada explains in another place what it means to be humble. A devotee asks Prabhupada what it means to be humble. And Prabhupada says that when one knows that there is nothing else except the mercy of the Lord, that is the only thing that can save one. And the devotee only depends on that, nothing else. Then one is said to be humble. But we have so much confidence on our own strength, our own abilities, maybe money, family, society, and so on and so forth, that our dependence on the Lord is not the primary factor. It's not the only factor for anything that we do. We have so many material faith on material things. But humility means devotee knows that means only by the mercy of the Lord anything can happen. And one is fully dependent on the mercy of the Lord, not on speculation, not on one's strength, not on someone else's strength, not any material factors. So, although you can see how great devotees exhibit such wonderful humility, they never consider themselves any great. They always think it's by the mercy of the Lord everything is happening. Srila Prabhupada did wonderful things, but he always gave credit that it's mercy of the Lord. He always said, my Guru Maharaj sent all these disciples. He never said, I did everything. And Srila Prabhupada's last final days is also exemplary. He was constantly absorbed. The devotees were always chanting in his room. He was absorbed in dictating Srimad Bhagavatam. Even at his last days, he was not taking any food. And he was completely absorbed, like Parikshit Maharaj, like Bhishma Deva. So these are wonderful examples of how one should lead one's life and how one should quit one's body. So this aspect of humility is very, very important. A devotee must develop humility, and humility is the first aspect of knowledge. In the items of knowledge which is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, the first item is humility. One may be very skillful. One may be able to do some things very nicely. But if the attitude of humility doesn't exist, it is not very pleasing. As it was mentioned in one of the quotes in the last few days that Sadhana Prabhu sent in the group, one of the quote is where, what can we serve Krishna? What capacity do we have? He's only looking for the sincerity. Are we really sincere? Are we really putting our sincere attempts? Because there is no way we can serve Him. He is all pure, He is all omnipotent, He is self-satisfied, He does not require anything. It's our false conception that we think that we are serving because of us something is moving. But actually a Vaishnava never thinks like that. He recognizes that everything, the ability that he is getting, the intelligence that he is getting, is everything coming from the Lord. And therefore, what is that I am offering? So the sincerity is very important. Not any sort of proud or pride that, oh, I am able to do skillfully this thing very well, I am able to do that skillfully that. Where is that all coming from? It is coming from the Lord. To the degree we are sincere, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, we are getting certain abilities and intelligence. So one should not be proud artificially because of anyone's skills that one can please the Lord. But this wonderful behavior, as Bhisma Deva is demonstrating, that is very pleasing. So we must learn how these devotees are pleasing the Lord. They are not proud. Oh, Lord is in front of me before dying. See how fortunate I am. For everyone, they have to remember the Lord, but for me, the Lord is in front of me. So we speculate, we give our own interpretation to things. But we have to see how Bhishma Deva is thinking and how Prabhupada is explaining. A Vaishnava is not puffed up, although the Lord guarantees his pure devotees entrance into his abode. And it is also important, Prabhupada is talking about few more characteristics of a pure devotee. That Prabhupada is saying that a pure devotee is never anxious to go to the kingdom of God. He entirely depends on the goodwill of the Lord. So, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim kavitamba jagdisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatat bhaktir ahetuki tvayi. A pure devotee's desire is very important to understand. How does a pure devotee desire? This is another symptom of how to recognize a devotee. A devotee is not asking the Lord for dhanam. I don't want wealth. Janam, followers. Sometimes we look to be glorified. We feel nice if few people appreciate us for what we are doing. And they say yes to everything that we say, then we like it. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim. Sometimes we aspire to have beautiful wife, beautiful husband, and so on and so forth. But no. Kavitam va jagadisha kamen. And not flowery words. Someone praising with great words. Oh, Prabhu, you are doing so well. You are doing that, you are doing this. A devotee does not look for any of these desires. What is the desire of a devotee? Mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatat bhaktir ahetuki tvayi. Without any interruption, without any cause, let there be devotional service unto you, life after life. This is the prayer which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is offering, which he is saying that I do not want this, I do not want this. All that I want, life after life, is unmotivated, unadulterated service unto you, my Supreme Lord. So this is the prayer that we all have to develop. Because core within our heart, there are so many desires. So many desires to be glorified, so many desires to have followers, so much desires to have wealth, so much desire to have power. So these desires are not the qualities of a pure devotee. So one other characteristic by which we can actually understand a devotee is the nature of the desires. This is very important. In this we can see what is the desire of Bhishma Deva. Bhishma Deva's desire is only to see the Lord. Lord is present in front of him. He can say, oh, please remove my pain. Please give me more life. Let me not die. You see, when someone is going to die, everyone says, let me live longer. Let me not die. Give me more power. Give me more medicine. Send me a good doctor. But we cannot think, oh Lord, let me remember you. Please be present before me. So these are not ordinary, these are special things. And Prabhupada is saying, a pure devotee does not mind wherever he might go. He basically is not anxious and he he is equally satisfied even if the Lord desires him to go to hell. So this is another very important. A devotee does not push the Lord to do anything for him. A devotee is very cautious. I should not, because I did some devotional service, I should ask the Lord for something for me. No. A pure devotee is very careful. I do not want to engage the Lord in my service. One can see Prahlad Maharaj, when Lord Narasimhadev asked him for various boons, he said, no, I do not want to be doing this business. I do not want in exchange something for my devotional service. But we are so demanding. We want circumstances to be favorable for doing devotional service. We want others to behave in a specific way for us to do devotional service. We want everything else to be set up according to our interests for us to do devotional service. And as soon as we see a certain disturbance, we do not see as a devotional service that in this circumstance I should also do devotional service, but we put conditions. You are asking me to do devotional service, you give me all these things, you create this situation, you be like this, only then I will do devotional service. Otherwise I will not do devotional service. So it is very important that how a pure devotee sees, he does not see in what circumstance he is. In what circumstance the Lord is putting. Just like the Pandavas, Kunti Maharani, they were going through so much suffering, Bhisma Deva is going through suffering. He is not asking to change the position in which he is existing. But he is just asking, let me do devotional service, let me remember you. This is very important because we may think sometimes that because I am doing devotional service, I have a claim to ask something from the Lord. I have the privilege and the right to get more facilities. We should not think like that. Prabhupada says that his Guru Maharaj wanted good facilities to be provided for the devotees so that they can comfortably chant. But at the same time, Prabhupada says that do not increase basic necessities. So we have to understand that not to go on increasing our comforts so as to do devotional service. The only desire that a pure devotee entertains is that he may always be in rapt attention with thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord regardless. So whether in whatever situation one is put in, a devotee is never asking to change the situation. He is just asking that may I always remember your lotus feet. May I always be absorbed in thinking of your pastimes. And Vritrasura says that may I always be the servant of the servant. If I get another life, let me be the servant of the servant of your servant. This is very important. We should not aspire or think that our desire should be something else. We have to learn from these desires of the pure devotees as how we should think, how we should desire. Bhisma Deva wanted this much only, that his mind be absorbed in thinking of the Lord and that he pass away thus. So that is the highest ambition of a pure devotee, is to remember the Lord at the point of death. And for that we have to train our desires, we have to develop the quality of humility, tolerance and respect. We have to do devotional service even in unfavorable circumstances. This tendency to demand things in unfavorable circumstances may look nice, but at the time of death it will be so unfavorable. If you are not able to tolerate small disturbances, unfavorable circumstances right now, what about at the time of the death, where there will be the most unfavorable circumstances, yet we are supposed to do devotional service. So we should not become agitated or too disturbed by unfavorable circumstances, but rather we should take them as a blessing of the Lord and intensify our devotional service. And we will see, in that moment, we will see the great reciprocation of the Lord. Not always in favorable circumstances. So these are some wonderful prayers of how one should quit the body, what should one pray at the time of death, how one should think at the time of death, what is the quality of a Vaishnava, how does he desire, and how wonderfully Bhisma Deva is trying to glorify the Lord for his wonderful features, the beautiful face, decorated face, beautiful eyes, and he's smiling. So the devotee is so much absorbed in thinking of the beauty of the Lord that he wants to meditate, and Bhisma Deva is demonstrating that here. And then we'll see some more instructions of Bhisma Deva, and before and after again he will be offering some wonderful prayers at the time before he passes away. These are some very important lessons for all of us to remember as we practice our spiritual life. We'll stop here if there are any questions or comments.